Welcome to the Architectural Outcast. I'm Randy. We've just had the 20-year anniversary of the release of Return of the King. So why not use that excuse, any excuse is a good excuse, to talk Tolkien.
Architectural Outcast.
To paraphrase the great architect Louis Kahn, architecture is a space that allows the human mind freedom to play. Architecture has often been called frozen music because just like music, architecture is incredibly powerful at evoking emotions, feelings, and concepts, themes. This is the power of all great art, allowing the human mind a space to play. The art acts as a jumping off point, framing the conversation, but it allows active participation by the audience. They're able to ask their own questions and find their own answers. In Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, we have a masterclass in the use of theme. He gives the audience the space that allows their minds the freedom to play. One of my favorite examples is the trail of breadcrumbs that Tolkien leaves throughout the novels that concludes at the Battle of the Pelennor Fields.
You fool! No man can kill me. Die now.
I am no man.
What allows Éowyn to stab the Witch King in the face and kill him is Merry crawling up behind him and stabbing him in the back of the knee with a dagger. There are two elements that went into making the Witch King vulnerable, allowing Éowyn to kill him. First is Merry himself. He put himself on the battlefield to begin with, and then had the wherewithal, the courage, to crawl up behind this being of pure evil with the intention of attacking him. And the second is the dagger itself. In the Peter Jackson adaptation, we learn that Merry and Pippin were given daggers by Galadriel. They're told that these daggers are ancient and they've been used to fight evil in the past. But in the novels, Tolkien is much more explicit. Setting up the scene, we have Éowyn desperately trying to protect her uncle, King Theoden, who lies dying, trapped under his horse, her arm already broken, having taken one fell blow. The Witch King standing over her, sword poised, ready for the final killing blow, when Tolkien writes, but suddenly he too stumbled forward with a cry of bitter pain, and the stroke went wide, driving into the ground. Merry's sword had stabbed him from behind, shearing through the black mantle and passing up beneath the hauberk, had pierced the sinew behind his mighty knee. Merry had struck. Éowyn rose up and said the famous line, "I am no man," and drove her sword directly into the Witch King's face. But what about that dagger? What makes it so important? Well, Tolkien doesn't leave that to the reader's imagination. He wrote, "So passed the sword of the Barrow Downs, work of Westerness, but glad would he have been to know its fate, who wrought it slowly long ago in the North Kingdom, when the Dunedain were young, and chief among their foes was the dread realm of Angmar and its sorcerer king. No other blade, not though mightier hands had wielded it, would have dealt that foe a wound so bitter, cleaving the undead flesh, breaking the spell that knit his unseen sinews to his will. Without that dagger, all would be for naught. There are few beings in Middle-earth who could take on the Witch King and possibly kill him. Galadriel, Gandalf, maybe a few others, but not mortals. It's only the magic bound up in that dagger that allowed the spell that kept the Witch King alive for all those years to be broken, providing the opportunity for Éowyn to make that killing blow. That dagger changed the course of history. Where did Merry get this dagger? In Peter Jackson's movie adaptation, we see Merry and Pippin given matching daggers by Galadriel. And we're told that these are ancient blades that have been used to fight evil in the past. There's an implication that these are magical. I mean, they come from Galadriel after all. But when Merry crawls up behind the Witch King and stabs him, it's not clear that magic had anything to do with the Witch King's final defeat. Now, this is a consequence of Jackson removing elements from the book. Now, this isn't a criticism. Jackson was doing an adaptation, in my opinion, an awesome one, but he wasn't doing a one-to-one recreation. When you remove parts from the original story, you make changes. You have to adapt. This is one of the consequences of that. In the novels, Merry gets this dagger at the beginning of his journey. He and the other hobbits have just fled the Shire, and they are lost in the old woods when they get ensnared by Old Man Willow. They're saved by Tom Bombadil, who takes them to his home. Upon resuming their journey, they're quickly ensnared by the Barrow-wights, who inhabit the barrows, which were tombs of the ancient kings of Westerness, the ancestors of Aragorn. They're again saved by Tom Bombadil. As the hobbits are laying out in the sunshine, recovering from the evil that they just encountered, Tom Bombadil goes back into the barrows, rummages around, and pulls out all the treasures that had been buried with the kings. And then Tolkien says, for each of the hobbits he chose a dagger, long, leaf-shaped, and keen, of marvelous workmanship, Damascus with serpent forms in red and gold. They gleamed as he drew them from their black sheaths, wrought of some strange metal, light and strong, and set with many fiery stones. Whether by some virtue in the sheaths or because of the spell that lay upon the mound, the blades seemed untouched by time, unrusted, sharp, glittering in the sun. The hobbits are so sheltered and so naive that they've begun this incredible journey without any weapons. They're completely unable to defend themselves. Tom corrects that mistake, gives them these blades, and warns them. Old knives are long enough as swords for hobbit people, he said. Sharp blades are good to have if Shire folk go walking east, south, or far away into dark and danger. Then he told them that these blades were forged many long years ago by men of Westerness. They were foes of the Dark Lord, but they were overcome by the evil king of Carndum in the land of Angmar. Few now remember them, Tom muttered. Yet still some go wandering, sons of forgotten kings, walking in loneliness, guarding from evil things folk that are heedless, foreshadowing their meeting with Aragorn, king of the Dunedain. As the hobbits leave Tom and continue on their journey, they are now all armed, with matching magical blades forged by the kingdom of Westerness, created to fight the Witch King of Angmar and his armies. Upon reaching Rivendell and the house of Elrond, Frodo replaced his dagger with Sting, Bilbo's magical sword that he used to great effect in The Hobbit. When they all resumed their journey, 3 of the hobbits still carried their magical blades, and they continued to carry them all the way through the mines of Moria and through Lothlorien. It's not only until Merry and Pippin are captured by the Uruk-hai that they lose their blades. Merry and Pippin are able to escape the Uruk-hai during a night attack by the riders of Rohan. They flee into Fanghorn, the ancient forest where they meet Treebeard and the Ents. It's only a few hours later that Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli arrive on the battlefield looking for evidence of where the hobbits might have gone. Tolkien wrote, "See," cried Aragorn, "here we find tokens." He picked out from the pile of grim weapons 2 knives, leaf-bladed, Damascus in gold and red, and searching further, he found also the sheaths, black set with small red gems. "No orc tools these," he said. "They were borne by the hobbits. Doubtless the orcs despoiled them, but feared to keep the knives, knowing them for what they are, work of Westerness. wound about with spells for the bane of Mordor. Well now, if they still live, our friends are weaponless. I will take these things, hoping against hope, to give them back. We learn that these daggers were created for more than just fighting against the kingdom of Angmar. They had magic in them that allowed them to be used against Mordor itself. Aragorn recognized their value and worth, knowing that they were the product of his ancient kin. He also associated them with Merry and Pippin. So not only did he choose to pick them up, he carried them on his person for the remainder of his journey, all the way through the Battle of Helm's Deep and into Isengard, where he found Merry and Pippin sitting in the ruins of the Ents' rampage. And Tolkien wrote, "Here are some treasures you let fall," said Aragorn. "You will be glad to have them back." He loosened his belt from under his cloak and took from it the 2 sheathed knives. "Well," said Merry, "I never expected to see those again. I marked a few orcs with mine, but Uglug took them from us. How he glared! I thought he was going to stab me, but he threw the things away as if they burned him." We know how this story ends. Merry continues to carry that dagger even after he and Pippin are separated. Merry rides to the Battle of the Pelennor Fields on the same horse as with Arwen. And when King Theoden falls and Arwen steps up to defend her uncle, there's Merry creeping into position with one of possibly only 4 knives in all of Middle-earth that could have done damage to the Witch King of Angmar, the Lord of the Nazgul. As the audience, we can take what I just described on a very surface level. The hobbits go on an adventure. They encounter some daggers through some very interesting circumstances. At various points in their journey, they lose and then regain these daggers. And at the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, when Merry makes his heroic move, he just so happens to have one of the few tools in Middle-earth that would do real damage to the Witch King of Angmar. This is the real genius of Tolkien. He allows the human mind the space to begin to play. We as an audience can ask deeper questions and find our own interpretations. We all know the scene from Jackson's movie where Gandalf is talking to Frodo, and he says that there are more forces acting on this world than evil.
There are other forces at work in this world, Frodo, besides the will of evil. Bilbo was meant to find the ring, in which case you also were meant to have it. And that is an encouraging thought.
In the books, he said, "There is more than one power at work, Frodo. So now, when its master was awake," talking about the ring, "once more and sending out his dark thoughts from Mirkwood, it, the ring, abandoned Gollum, only to be picked up by the most unlikely person imaginable, Bilbo from the Shire. Beyond that, there was something else at work, beyond any design of the ringmaker. I can put it no plainer than by saying that Bilbo was meant to find the ring, and not by its maker, in which case you also were meant to have it, and that may be an encouraging thought. If Bilbo was meant to find the ring, and Frodo meant to carry the ring, why wasn't Merry meant to have that dagger?" With that thought in mind, it changes the interpretation of everything that happened. Why had Merry and the other hobbits been given 4 very specific daggers? Ones that had been created in Westerness for the purpose of fighting against the kingdom of Angmar and Mordor. I mean, they could have found 4 random daggers that happened to be magical. That's how Bilbo found Sting. This is a wonderful balancing act between free will versus divine purpose. As long as Merry did what he was supposed to do, get himself to the Pelennor Fields and in a position where he could drive a dagger into the back of the Witch King's knee, Iluvatar, the god of this world, would make sure that he had one of the few tools available in all of Middle-earth that would actually do some good. Break the spell that made the Witch King immortal, allowing Arwen her act of heroism to land the killing blow. There is another argument for why those daggers in particular. They had been created in Westerness for the specific purpose of fighting against the kingdom of Angmar and all other evil creatures from Mordor. Those barrows that they were found in, those were the tombs of the ancient kings of Westerness. Aragorn's ancestors. Westerners lost their battle with the kingdom of Angmar, were destroyed, and in one final act of spite, the Witch King invited the burial rites into the barrows, desecrating the tombs, turning them into evil, foul, and corrupt things that ensnared wandering passerbys. It's that act of spite, the desecration of those ancient tombs, that allows Merry and the other hobbits to come into contact with those magical daggers, those products of ancient Westerness. It is the Witch King's own actions that lead to his undoing, that allows Merry to end up in the Pelennor Fields with one of the few tools in all of Middle-earth that could harm him. Evil brings evil upon itself. Let me leave you all with one last thing to think about. If Merry was meant to have that dagger, what does it say about the person who gave him the dagger? Tom Bombadil, one of the most mysterious and enigmatic figures in all of the Lord of the Rings. I think one of the clues lie in Tom Bombadil's foreshadowing of the hobbits meeting Aragorn. He went into those barrows looking for something very specific. He knew what those knives were, who had made them, the kingdom of Westerness, and their purpose, to fight against the evil creatures of Mordor, more specifically, the Witch King of Angmar. He knew the risk that those knives posed to the Witch King. So before they left, he made sure every one of the hobbits had one of those daggers. I would argue that one interpretation is that Tom Bombadil is the physical manifestation of Iluvatar on Middle-earth. This is where I get some of my greatest pleasure out of reading The Lord of the Rings. Tolkien gives his audience enough space for their minds to play. We can ask questions, and there are multiple interpretations. This encourages conversation and debate. It's reasonable to assume it's just a bunch of random events. Those daggers are nothing special. But Tolkien leaves enough of a bread trail, along with other elements of the story, for us to start asking some very serious questions. And the real joy of the whole thing? Tolkien never imposes his own interpretation on the audience. So what do you all think? Do those daggers symbolize something deeper? Or am I making a mountain out of a molehill? At any rate, I got to talk about The Lord of the Rings, and that's a good day. If you all made it this far, thank you for your time, and I hope I've given you all something to think about. Until next time, I'll be seeing you. Oh yeah, if you don't mind, like and subscribe, please.
Please like and subscribe. Please leave a comment.